that one 3. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Great.
Okay.
And you're good.
Okay. Kirk, can you just kind of describe our history together? Just kind of give me a rundown of what that's been like and how we met and kind of the moment that we met, what that was all about, and where we are today.
Yeah, we've worked together for over a decade, and so there's a large sample size now to work off of. But my dad heard you speak and heard you share a lot of what you know over a decade ago, and he, at the time, I was a college quarterback, and so he felt like this would give me an advantage playing quarterback in college, and ended up being able to meet with you during my senior season. And it was about halfway through my senior season, and we started working together, and had about 9 games left in that season. And we got to the end of the season, and my offensive coordinator who called the plays, as we looked back on my career and back on that season, said, "Kirk, I really felt like you played your best football these final 9 games." And I thought that was interesting because he knew nothing about our work together, and yet the timeline he selected as when my play really went up and then maintained at that high level exactly coincided with when we met and started working together. And I remember making that connection, saying there's something to that. And I've found over the last decade that that's been the case, that to the degree that I've really pressed in and worked with you diligently, my play has always correlated with that in such a way that I'm very successful. And there have been times to my own detriment where I've stepped away or been less engaged. And many times my play hasn't quite been as consistent. And so I decided a couple of years ago that I wasn't going to let that happen anymore. And I decided to go all in, and I have seen a much greater level of consistency in my play on the field. And so I'm a major believer in the work we've done and what it can do, not only for me as an athlete, but for me as a human being. When it comes to me being as healthy as I can possibly be, the impact it has on my family, on my relationships. So it's been a relationship between you and I that's been blessed by God, and I'm grateful that we met over a decade ago. I don't know that I would still be playing football as a professional athlete today at the age I'm at if not for us meeting over a decade ago. So extremely grateful that happened.
Awesome. Thanks. What would you say are the top 2 to 3 things that out of the experience over the last decade that you've learned in our experience that have just impacted your play or just have made you a stronger person?
I think that realizing that my brain has potential that isn't necessarily tapped into, but that by the work we've done, I can access it, I can tap into it, I can maximize the hardware and software that I've been given. It really has made a major difference. And so, we've done a lot of work and tests to understand my brain and what it has to offer, but we've also done a lot of work to extract that and to put it to use. And so it manifests itself in the form of greater levels of focus, the ability to manage stress and crisis situations, the ability to be at my best when my best is required, which many times is very difficult moments. And I would argue there's a resiliency, an ability to sustain over longer periods of time. And in my profession, many people have a successful game, a successful season, but can you do it for a decade? And I think our work has enabled me to do it over a much longer period of time and a larger body of work to say I'm not just a fluke. I've been able to have sustained success, which in the world I'm in can really separate you.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to talk about some specific things. So tell me a little bit about the vision work and specifically what we define as precision. So tell me about vision and precision work.
Well, in the world I'm in as a quarterback, my vision is a lifeline for me. I have to be able to see and process information extremely quickly. The faster, the better. And milliseconds can be the difference in winning and losing. And so my eyes, my eye muscles, my brain's ability to receive what my eyes are taking in is so important, and there's very little room for error, and so we want to leave no stone unturned in that department. And we were able to do vision training to strengthen the muscles in my eyes, strengthen my ability to see far, to seeing near, to looking left, to looking right, and for the brain to quickly be able to pick up that information and not miss a millisecond. And I think that's made a difference, certainly on the field, but it also makes a difference when I'm reading books. It makes a difference in terms of the energy my brain has to expend throughout the day to be able to just function. If my eyes and my brain are working more efficiently, that's less energy that is put to work to function on a daily basis. So my body and my brain and my eyes become more efficient, and I'm not as tired at the end of the day. So there are many benefits, obviously as an athlete, but I'd say beyond that as a whole person, that you really start to become your best self. And these are results that I didn't even know I could get. And so you're not only discovering how to get there, but you're realizing this is opening doors I didn't even know were possible that could be opened.
Based on not knowing that, could you speak a little bit to, there's a real gap that we see when we're dealing with a lot of these collegiate athletes and even in the pro setting where nobody's even addressing the vision stuff. Can you you've been in sports for so long, right? Like, why do you think that is? Like, that nobody's really like looking at this, or is your experience that you see people looking at this, or can you kind of speak to why is it neglected? The whole vision and the muscles in the vision thing.
Well, I think there's a level of complexity that requires a little bit better understanding. I think that it was not something that has a lot of history going back 40 or 50 years, so time is not on the side of vision for people to really understand it. I think that people tend to want to do what they understand, and I do think that this is the next frontier. I think when we look back in a decade, people are going to say, well, of course you check your vision. I mean, why wouldn't you? Much like weightlifting or other training methods have become commonplace, but if you brought them up in the 50s or 60s, people would have said, what is that? And so this is the next frontier, and this is the future of not only athletic performance, but I think human performance. And if you're not tapping into this, you're really missing out on some incredible foundational pieces to your health and your performance as a human being. It's important to note that the work we've done is very data-driven. There's a lot of work you can do with psychologists, neuropsychologists, where it's how do you feel? And it's very subjective. This, for the years we've worked together, double-digit years, it's very objective. And quite frankly, when it becomes subjective, we sort of both say, that doesn't help us. So we really emphasize the objective data. What do the numbers say? Let's go by the numbers. And I think having good data that's sound allows us to feel even more convicted about what we're working with.
Yeah, even the stem cell thing, right?
Yeah, we're not just going to go get stem cells and cross our fingers. We want to create a baseline before we go, and then when we come back, we want to have data and to be able to measure it. And I think that is just an example of a much larger picture of what we're trying to do when it comes to our health and our performance.
Yeah, great. Okay. So, breathing we define as power, okay? And the reason we do that is 90% of our energy comes from breathing, as you know. So, I would say breathing's been at the core of everything that we've done. Neurofeedback, all of it has started with breathing. So, Kirk, tell me how, this is a loaded question, tell me how breathing has impacted your career.
Well, when we first met, I didn't naturally breathe correctly. I was breathing through my rib cage, through my chest, which is how most of us breathe, but is not the way God designed it to be, and not how our body's physiologically going to respond best. And so I learned what it meant to breathe through my diaphragm, to breathe with deeper breaths instead of shallow breaths. These are things I still to this day don't naturally do, and so that's where the training has been so effective and such a difference maker. But again, I point to when I've been very diligent with regular breathing sessions, 3.5 minutes at a minimum, multiple times a day, multiple days a week, it has led to better performance on the field. And it's a job for me playing quarterback at the professional level that is very stressful. There's a lot of crisis moments, and physiologically, I need my body in those moments to respond and deliver at its absolute best. And breathing is foundational for that to happen. No matter how many other good things you do, if you're not breathing correctly, you're probably not going to be able to deliver. And no matter how many things you're doing poorly, if your breathing is correct, it can cover for a lot of other issues and weaknesses. And I also think for the lifespan, this is a very valuable trait that will help me in the near term, but to breathe correctly and train my body to do this correctly, I think when I'm in my 70s, when I'm in my 80s, it will enable me to have a far better quality of life, and my brain will function at a far higher level. And so I'm in it for the short term, and I'm in it for the long term. And breathing is foundational to both.
Yeah. So we use this breathing, and we connect it to your achievement score, which is your heart rate variability, right? And you're able to see this achievement score related to your heart coherence.
Right.
Tell me how that coherence score has correlated with your performance, or maybe not correlated. Well, yeah, how it's correlated with your performance on the field.
Well, what I found interesting was just last year when I really got back into diligent breathing on a regular basis, and I was looking at our app, I scrolled back to see the last time I'd been that diligent, and it was a stretch of about 3 months when I happened to play the best football I had ever played. And so I thought, that's interesting. At the same time I was diligently logging these sessions here, I was also playing my best football. And now here I am again doing that same work and playing my best football. And again, you cannot say that is why I played better. There's so many variables. But I sure can point to a correlation that when I do this breathing diligently, my play somehow goes to another level. It like unlocks a potential in me that was lying dormant. And I find it funny because it's like I'm holding this secret. And I do feel it gives me a competitive advantage because I know so few people understand this. It is the next frontier. It will be understood well in several years. But for right now, I feel I have an advantage on the competition. And while I'm doing this video to share it to the masses, and that's a great thing, I also like the idea of keeping it a little secret so I can have a competitive advantage.
Yes, that's awesome. Fantastic. So tell me a little bit about what does it mean to have an inner armor? What does that mean to you to have an inner armor?
Well, life's tough. Life's not fair. Life's going to throw you curveballs. So the one thing you can guarantee is that storms in life are going to come. Crisis moments are coming, and they're knocking at your door probably right now. And so the fact that you're going to face them is undeniable. The question is, are you ready when they arrive? And will you be able to respond and have resilience through them? And so for me, to build up my inner armor in the off season, through my week of preparation, getting ready for a game, gives me the tools and the potential I then need to unlock my best self on a Sunday afternoon in front of tens of thousands of people and millions more watching on television. And so I cannot afford to go into those moments without that inner armor. And everything in me wants to do what it takes to make sure I have as much inner armor as possible in those crisis moments.
And outside of football, how learning all these different things, you've spoken to it earlier, but let's just kind of summarize it one more time. What's the ripple effect in other areas of life? Can you kind of speak to that? Just summarize that one more time. Like beside, yes, playing football, but one more time, let's kind of summarize that.
Well, there's many people who aren't athletes, and they're going to get tremendous benefit from this work, and there's many, many people back in my community who have done this work who would testify to that. But I believe that my interpersonal skills are stronger, my ability to relate to my wife, my kids, my ability to focus on them and not get distracted, my ability to listen to them and be present instead of being there but physically, but mentally, emotionally elsewhere. All these things, can transform family dynamics. I think about longevity and being healthy and feeling good and being at your best physically and mentally and emotionally day in and day out, completely removed from athletics. It enables me to be a better person. So the fact that I can have mental clarity, that I can have energy, that I can feel an ability to manage stress, to be present. These are all things that certainly help as a quarterback, but they're really helping far more as a human being.
Perfect. And then let's just finish with this last one that we haven't really got into. I'm going to introduce the focus to you later in the spring, but let's just talk about focus in general.
Yeah.
Okay. So how is the process, which is probably coming more out of neurofeedback, but just in general, how have you noticed your focus change over the last decade through the different things that we've done?
Well, I do think that this is where it becomes difficult to, tangibly say, my focus got better, so I played better. But the correlation is there. And I know I can look at data. I don't just say, well, I feel like I'm focusing better. People around me may be able to observe. We notice that you're a little more present. We notice that you're listening better. We notice that you're focusing better. It's harder for me as an individual to sense that and feel that, but I can look at data and say my brain used to be here, my body used to be here objectively, and now it's in a different place. And the science suggests that that's going to make me a more focused, more capable athlete and person. But I do think it has enabled me to not only play well, but to process information well. Game plans require so much study, so much volume, so many meetings. So there's so much Monday through Saturday to get you ready for Sunday that while Sunday's how you're measured, if you can be more effective Monday through Saturday, you're much better off on Sunday. So I do think it's given me a better chance in those crisis moments on Sunday. But the training, the biofeedback that creates greater focus for me is also showing itself Monday through Saturday as I sit in meetings, as I practice, as I prepare for those games.
Perfect. Anything, Ian?
Can I say one more thing? Did you turn it off?
Yeah.
I want to basically say back what you put on the card about oxygen used by the body to sustain the life of the neuron, protect it from toxins and inflammation. Without enough oxygen, the number of mitochondria decreases, leading to neurodegeneration. Deep diaphragmatic breathing provides excellent oxygenation to the brain. Just to be able to just like,
What was that? That was the card.
you sent this on a card you sent, breathe, yeah. So I just wanted to kind of say that in more layman's terms, that basically breathing, the brain's energy comes from oxygen. Absolutely. By breathing effectively, you maximize your ability to get oxygen to the brain. And in doing that, you're protecting your body from toxins and inflammation. Breathing provide, yeah. So that's what I'd say. Yeah. Can I say that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'll just say, what I've learned in working with you over the last decade is that the brain is really the life force that drives who you are as a person and your ability to have success. And 80% of the brain's energy comes from oxygen that we take in as we breathe. And so to breathe effectively is going to give our brain a higher ceiling, a greater potential. And there is inflammation, there are toxins that can build up, but that this oxygen that we bring in removes. And so for me, to breathe correctly and maximize my oxygen intake and the resources I'm giving my brain, I'm maximizing who I am as a person. And that's why it's so foundational that you breathe correctly with deep diaphragmatic breathing as often as you can, for as long as you can, because it gives your brain oxygen, the resource it needs to maximize its potential.